was it necessary? Point in time, I was saying that those who followed the 7 days breakfast ideas may have observed that there seem to be more carbohydrates in that plan or arrangement rather. And there is need for dietary changes and modifications in order to preserve our health. And this particular one is not among those common foods that we are so familiar with, despite its numerous health benefits, because of too many complaints and cases of stomach ulcers and other conditions that may have been addressed effectively with this. And then other reasons why it became necessary to also talk about it is as a result of the changes too that I myself have made. Is a source of nutrients that are needed as you get older. It's okay to continue to consume your greens, but then not all the greens are the same. And we need also to understand this, that there is also necessity of including these cruciferous vegetables because of their high antioxidants and cancer-fighting properties. And this happens to be one of them. It has its ugly side also. And so, what other reasons necessitated this subject matter? It's also as a result of the diabetics. They always have a problem of how to incorporate some healthy foods. We cannot continue to stay away because of sugar, because it seems that almost all of these power-packed foods are also packed with sugar, naturally occurring sugar. And don't let anyone deceive you. Sugar is sugar, whether it's in fruits, whether it's in vegetables, whether you find them in onions, or wherever you find sugar, it's the same thing. And so it's necessary also to suggest ways that the diabetics can incorporate this food into their diet. This vegetable. It's also necessary to create this awareness because it also has its own ugly sides. I mean, the green cabbage. We have the purple cabbage. I've used it infrequently. It is said to also be even much more loaded. But I'm talking of the one I have used more frequently and effectively also. And it has actually worked. Not just reading about it, but I've put it to test and I've used it. So the purple cabbage also is there, but not so common as well. There are other colors, even some, I've heard of red cabbage as well, but it depends on regions. But here where we are in Nigeria, the green cabbage is actually more common A lot of people use it in salads. There are different ways that people use it. And over the years, after effectively using it to lose weight, to manage stomach ulcers, to restore health, to regain health, it also became necessary to leave it off as years went by because of sugar concerns. And after many years as well, it became also necessary to change, to go back, because it is one of the secrets of wellness. You must continue to make adjustments as you listen to your body. If you consider that carbohydrates are much, or resistant starch or high calorie foods are much, begin to explore alternatives and options. And so this happened to be one of the reasons why it's considered to be the right subject for this hour, because as we get older, we need to be cautious of high calorie in our diet. And this particular vegetable helps to address that, because it's very low in calorie, one of the very low veggies. As we get older, it's also necessary to consider antioxidant-rich veggies, such as this green cabbage. Is high in beneficial antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin K, which also helps to decrease incidence of intestinal bleeding. When ulcers occur in some cases and they are not known or noticed, because as a matter of fact, some people are moving about with stomach ulcers unknown to them, until when a crisis or a complication comes up, maybe there is a trigger. That is when most people discover. And usually it may require hospitalization, and sometimes even hospital emergency. And so, in order to prevent such cases, as we believe in prevention, green cabbage is a source of vitamin K. And vitamin K is not a common, it's rare. And it helps to protect and prevent, or rather also reduce cases of intestinal bleeding, which occurs as a result of stomach ulcers, especially when they are not noticed on time. It's a source of folate, which is also great to reduce cases of stroke. We know that there are diseases that come with age. You don't have to, ignore this. There is age when people are prone to fibroids. During the reproductive years, if the child didn't come, there is more likelihood of, or children hadn't come or are still coming, or for various other reasons, within the reproductive years of a woman, she's open or more likely to face challenges of fibroids. But after the menopause comes in, that the fibroid cases becomes rare. Another phase of challenge begins to show up, because the monthly waste removal or disposal has been stopped. So estrogen activities, hormonal issues, health challenges such as blood sugar increase, diabetes, pre-diabetics, arthritis, heart issues, high blood pressure, stroke. These are cases, challenges that show up in the later years during the premenopause, menopause, and postmenopause years. And it is important and necessary to continue to make dietary changes in order to be able to face these phases of life as they show up. And we cannot continue with the regular foods, conventional foods that you've been taking before, foods that you were raised with. You cannot continue with those ones and expect, a perfect health, because there are changes that are taking place. And the green cabbage is one of such foods with top anti-cancer fighting properties. It's one of such because, as I said, it's a source of the powerful antioxidant vitamins A, even beta-carotene, folate, potassium for regulating blood pressure, and even soluble fiber for helping to manage cholesterol. And most importantly, one of the reasons why we also need to begin to include it, because it helps to remove toxins from the body. And one of the biggest challenges that we have, both men and women, as we age, is disposal of toxins in the body, toxic buildup, whether they gather in form of mucus, whether they gather in the colon, or they gather through the skin or through the lungs. But these waste toxins are roaming around us 24/7, looking for a place of abode where they can stay and begin to build their own blood vessels. Some turns out to be cancer, if not discovered on time, but of course they will have been given serious signals, warnings. But many of us, we take this as mere symptoms and we ignore it until the critical stage. And so it is important to include foods that are high in antioxidants, foods that are listed as cancer-fighting foods like the green cabbage, foods that can help to pull out toxins, foods that can help to pull out toxins from the body. Such foods, you need to identify them and begin to include them in your diet. And cabbage happens to be one of them. And one of the challenges of older adults is malabsorption syndrome. Yes, when the body is not really taking or using those foods, usually leading to toxic buildup. Sometimes, if it is not controlled or managed, a lot of them come up with complaints of stomach ulcer, whether diagnosed or not diagnosed. They complain of pain radiating from the back and various other symptoms like that. But most times, when the body is not absorbing the conventional and regular foods we eat on a daily basis, which is most times carbohydrates, very, very high in carbs. Most of our foods here are very high in carbohydrates. And at other times, they are also very high in calorie. And green cabbage is a low-calorie vegetables. Those that need to protect their kidney, it's a great vegetable for your kidney. In addition to cauliflower, they are easily digestible. They don't place weight on those organs. It's a great vegetable for your liver, to preserve your liver. A lot of people are moving about with heavy metals in the liver. I have noticed it so many years ago. But the inclusion of cabbage, green cabbage, will take them out gradually, because these heavy metals in this organ, the liver, is not something that gets, built up in one day. The teas we drink, the spices we use, the pots we cook with, all kinds of tiny, tiny metals coming from a lot of things that we use daily, on a daily basis, continue to gather gradually around the liver and the kidney as well, around the liver, and over time, there is always something that is like a heavy metal. It's usually thick. It's not something I have, experienced it before. It's usually thick around that place. And a lot of people may not understand what it is, because it's not always easy to diagnose it. It doesn't really come with serious and threatening symptoms like that, but when it eventually settles and gets accumulated, before we know it, the liver is damaged already. And so foods like green cabbage is great for liver, for helping remove heavy metals that are hiding somewhere in the liver. It's a great liver support because it has zero fat. Other greens are good, but the reason why we also must be cautious about most of these greens are blood thickness. Most of them are also blood thickness, but not just blood thickness. Some of them are difficult to digest. Yes, I told somebody the pumpkin leaf, the popular pumpkin leaves, causes constipation. He was arguing it, but not too long, he came back to confirm to me that it is true. I said, well, you can argue it, but for all I know, it is difficult to digest. And so are some veggies. So once we discover that it is difficult to digest and causes constipation, then we need to begin to go lower on it. Then green cabbage will help if you have suffered stomach ulcer, for instance. It will help to prevent a reoccurrence if you include it moderately in your diet. I say moderately because it's a goitronin food. When I talk of goitronin food, those who are prone to thyroid issues should be careful with it. I need to quickly highlight this also. You should not take it too much. And even if you take it, you need to start to include cold pressed coconut oil, either as a medicine, like I shared in the previous videos, on the previous lives. You can go back there and watch it, how to take the cold pressed coconut oil as medicine. It helps to support your thyroid health, especially if you have begun to consume a goitronin food like green cabbage. There are other goitronin foods also, but this is one of them. Those who love taking plenty of salads, they need to also hear this, that it's a goitronin food and could trigger either underthyroid activities or overactive, either underactive or overactive thyroid. Whichever one It's not a healthy way. It's not a healthy position for the thyroid health. And if you have ever seen people who are under the problem of thyroid, you will never want to have such a problem in your life. And so there are some foods that nutrients are secretly hidden in them, which we need to include moderately in order to assess the nutrient that helps to sustain some of these vital organs. So as much as the cabbage is a great addition to support the liver health, to support the kidney health, to support our gut health and prevent internal bleeding, like cases of stomach ulcers, if you had it before, or you are currently experiencing it, you can begin to take it, but I also tell us how to take it as we go along. So you need to listen and watch to the end. So you need to start to include it in order to avoid things like bleeding. Because since you cannot see, we do not see the ulcers with our eyes. At times when they bleed, it's very, very dangerous and sometimes difficult to manage. Some people name it poisoning. Some people call it any name they like. When you get to us, they say the person had been poisoned. And sometimes it may just be a bleeding intestinal ulcer that was not discovered on time. And while it's there, we continue to eat all the offending foods like the fried varieties, our fried foods that we normally, some of us like to eat. We eat things like noodles, pastas, processed foods, and all the stuff that creates a heavily acid environment, which keeps the ulcer down or not having any access to healing foods that can even help to heal it. And so it may continue to linger until bleeding occurs. So foods like cabbage will help to reduce or prevent such incidences. Cases like stroke will also be reduced because of the presence of folate. Toning down blood pressure, it's a source of potassium too. And not just potassium, it's also a source of easily digestible fiber that helps to tackle constipation. And it is the special nature of the fiber in this cruciferous vegetable that makes it unique. It's not just like any other vegetable. It tackles constipation perfectly. Whether you ferment it, some people ferment it as a fermented cabbage. Some people boil it for constipation and whatever. And for various other reasons, in addition to making salads, juicing it, blending it, are some of the ways that people take it. But of course, if you are a diabetic or pre-diabetic, I wouldn't suggest to you to go blend or juice carrots and cabbage juice in order to manage your stomach ulcer. But there are ways, smart ways, you can consume these healthy vegetables without, spiking your sugar. And that is what I will share in the next highlight, that you don't have to stay off it permanently. I did for some time. And of course, noticed the need to go back. And of course, if you need to go back, you need to find smart ways to include it so that it doesn't affect, your blood sugar. Being high in sugar on its own if taken in large amount, it's obviously going to increase your sugar. Whether you're pre-diabetic or you are a diabetic, it's obviously going to increase your sugar, which is going to, destroy all the benefits that is expected. And so, when you want to consume it as a diabetic, you must first of all consider including blood foods that lowers blood sugar naturally. And of course, these very common ones we talk about here are cinnamon. You can also have a sprinkle of cinnamon. I like to wash it, actually, with apple cider, peeling the back. Some people like to use it to cook their rice or boil it. There are occasions when steaming it is good. It's okay. Very great too. When you want to add it to your rice or salad. But eating it cooked all the time, I think it destroys the vitamin C or reduces the antioxidant properties, because when you take it raw in some amount, not all the time, not too much of it, you're going to experience that heating, that firing up inside your body when you take it, because it's a yeast killing food. I need to remind us, it's one of the top foods. If you are suffering or from yeast overgrowth, which is the case with many people, unknown to them, if you are experiencing overgrowth of yeast or fungal problems, you need to include green cabbage, because it has ingredients, natural properties that kills off the yeast. And so when you take in the green cabbage raw, if you aim to destroy yeast using the cabbage as a food, you need to take it raw. When you take it raw, you're going to experience that heat up, that heating, firing up, if you are able to listen, that heating up in your body. That is a kind of heat that is sensed inside your body. That is the fat burning properties, the yeast killing properties, the cancer killing properties, including the vitamin C. But when we cook it, we still have some of the nutrients, but not the vitamin C. And that firing up when we take it in as food is no longer there when it is cooked. And I have personally observed that. And so I often prefer to steam some of it and then take some raw. And it's actually best taken on empty stomach if you are trying to use it to heal ulcers and for whatever. It's best taken when the stomach is empty, so that it does something like a mopping up of the acids. Take it on empty stomach. I even heard that some cultures makes it a kind of cultural thing, that when you come in, they serve you first of all with cabbage. And when you go to those cultures, you don't meet too many cases of obesity because of this culture in their land, that they have to serve you with cabbage, because it acts as a digestive. It helps to, to digest your foods and ensure that they are digested. And so, here are some of the top ways that diabetics can include it in their diet. You can actually include using some sprinkle of cinnamon with it. You can also take your chia seed ahead of it or even before it. I like always to take the chia seed ahead, soaked chia seed, about half a tablespoon of it. You can soak it, and then after taking it, You can now chew your cabbage in moderation and then use other to cook. You can also try taking fenugreek oil. This is one of my best, options. Fenugreek oil on empty stomach before taking your raw cabbage. If you want to take it, it actually requires oil for digestion. And I think when you do not add oil, that is when it even hurts the thyroid more. Because most people, when they are taking it and you do not add oil, you just, mix it with other things, it affects the thyroid. And when also consuming it, it's also best for diabetics, after taking it on empty stomach, to follow it up with a protein-rich food, maybe like moi moi or black-eyed cowpea, something that is rich, and better still, animal protein like eggs. It goes well with eggs, which I know that egg is also a food that supports the thyroid. So it's best to combine it with things like chicken, turkey, meat, egg, and even sardines. It works very well with sardines too, without the oil, because the foods that supports your thyroid are the best food to be paired, foods that are rich in protein after taking it, so that it doesn't cause a spike. And when taking it by pre-diabetics and diabetics, it's best to add it as part of the overall calorie in the diet. What I mean is, the sugar in it should serve as the calorie in the diet. With that, it will not likely cause a spike in the blood sugar when we take it that way. But when we take it and try to add other carbohydrates into it, it's not going to work well, because those sugars in it are part of the carbs, and then if you try to consume it with other carbs, then it will add up and increase your blood sugar. You can also take one of the bitter foods like your codeine tea, your neem tea, your green tea, and all those teas that helps even to reduce your blood sugar. You can even take your ginger tea, take your your ginger tea, your mint tea, lemongrass, and all this stuff, either ahead of it or after taking it. You give out some time and take something that lowers sugar naturally, not to follow it up with cereals, grains, and all the stuff. It's not going to work well, because green cabbage is a healing food. I tag it a healing food because there are foods that we call healing foods. You may not consider them to consume them, but when you are, going through some health challenges and they are introduced to you and you begin to include them and see results, it will hurt you that you never knew this before, that it took you so long to be taught that this is what this food can do for you. And sometimes we have these things in our gardens, at our backyard, sometimes very close and even free. But because ignorance keeps us away from, tapping from it, you wouldn't know, even if it's given to you for free. You wouldn't be able to use it because you don't know the benefit, you don't know the use. Knowledge is very important. When you are empowered with knowledge, it's only then that, ignorance goes away and you'll be able to assess it and then enjoy it and appreciate even that gift. So the diabetics can, even improvise smart ways to include it moderately in their diet without affecting their blood sugar by way of combining them with foods that lowers blood sugar. We have like cloves. You can choose some cloves before it or after it. While its sugar is there, the clove also will work to lower the sugar. There are several other foods that can help you to incorporate it without affecting. And above all, it's not okay to just juice it with carrot like other people. You can, even if you are just do a small amount. I prefer not to juice it because juicing it will expose you to taking very large amount without knowing it. And before you know it, it may have, you may have taken the excess of it. And that is why you should not take it just as a smoothie or just like other people will blend together using bananas, everything together. You must be very cautious if you are a pre-diabetic or a diabetic. But besides this, it's a superfood for older adults and they should embrace it. I have to end this one.